Hello and welcome to The Stinger, a superfan's guide to Marvel, Star Wars, and much, much more. I'm Josh Gann. Joining me today are two of your favorite co-hosts. To me, my co-hosts. It's Trent Neely and Joseph Sneed. How we doing, guys?
How's it going, bub?
Name's Joseph. Remember it.
Oh, that was good. That was good, Joseph. Y'all came prepared with the quotes today. It has been a while since you have heard from your favorite pals here at The Stinger, but I am so excited for us to be back today. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for subscribing to the podcast. If you haven't already, know that you can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram and on TikTok at The Stinger Pod. Guys, it's so good to be back in your presence. Look at us. Look at us podcasting.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thunk it?
I am so excited to talk X-Men 97 with you all today. Spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't finished the season yet. We're going to be diving deep into this show, talking lots of spoilers. Also, spoiler warning for the original X-Men animated series, because I'm sure we'll be talking about that a bit as well. Gosh, I'm just like, this is exciting. I feel like this has been kind of the fandom event of the after Dune, in between Dune and now. Has this not been the fandom event of the year?
No, for sure. And especially this has been the thing that even the people who were sort of out on Marvel, they're back. People are like, okay, but everything is trash now with superheroes except X-Men 97. Sort of, it's been a thing that I've seen on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, it's been not a great year for fandom. It doesn't really look like it'll be a great year moving forward for a lot of stuff. You know, we're coming off of the worst Memorial Day opening weekend in 40 years.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's kind of good to see something that most people have been like, you know what, that was actually really good, and shows that Marvel can still put out quality stuff when they put the effort into it.
Yeah, so I feel like let's dive right into it. You know, it's been we've had time to sit with this show. The finale aired about 2 weeks ago now, as you're listening to this episode. So yeah, let's just open this discussion. I'll kick it off to you first, Trent. What are your overall thoughts on X-Men 97?
This show's just great. I hate to sound dumb, but it's just good in every sense of the word. The animation, it feels like the general vibe of the original series, but the improved animation techniques. So things just look a little bit crisper. The theme is the same iconic theme, but they added drums into the background, so it hits even harder, which I didn't think was possible. And all the voice actors, we got people who are returning from the original series, like the original Rogue, the original Wolverine are back, but all the new people, they sound like what you remember those voices from the original series, but they also made it their own thing. And I think the main thing that people really respond to with the show is that they did stuff from the comics, insane, crazy, borderline cheesy stuff from the comics that you wouldn't think works in live action. They were willing to try it here, with Madeline Pryor and all that stuff, and Bastion and all that stuff at the end. That would be crazy in live action, but it totally works here in the things that animation can do. And it's a really fun ride. And I think for people who were familiar with the original show, it was a great continuation. And then for people who were coming in cold, I think it probably just felt like a really well developed world and a great entry point into the X-Men universe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really good. Trent and I had talked some, and we were like, "Is this the best show on Disney Plus?"
Ever?
Yeah, of their originals. I don't think I'd put it above Andor.
Right.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But after that,
it's probably a toss up between that and Loki for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this one was really good, and you watch it too, and the thing it did. A lot of the episodes were cliffhangers, but I felt like I was always on the edge of my seat at the end of the episode, what's going to happen next. And
Mhm.
the cliffhangers weren't like annoying cliffhangers that you can
No.
get. They're like those ones that drip feed you a little bit, and you're like, I got to see what happens next.
Yeah.
The one to me that really stood out was the cliffhanger in episode 9, where Professor X is like, please don't do this. And you're like, is Wolverine about to die?
Yeah.
So I think the show did that well. The one thing I wasn't expecting to be so good is something insane happens at the end of the episode, and then the end credits music is just as good as the opening credits music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think all around, like Trent was saying, the voice acting, the animation is just a great show.
Yeah, they did something special with the endings. I have to agree there. Like the kind of just like shock that you feel, this like almost like a punch to the gut, and then you're watching the little like biographies of each character with that music that you're talking about, Joseph. And it's just such a great like coming down off this high moment, like as you're sunk into the couch, like, oh my gosh, what did I just watch? For me, this was my introduction to the X-Men. So I was talking about this with y'all beforehand. I did not grow up watching the X-Men movies. I just watched the original X-Men for the first time this year. I did not watch the original X-Men animated series. And before the show came out, I picked up, you'll see behind me on screen, my first like physical comic book, which is Batman Year One. And then right after that, I picked up like a trade paperback of a Grant Morrison run of the X-Men. It's just a collection of stories from Days of Future Past. And that was the tone setter that I had for this show, and I have to say it was actually spot on. Like there were scenes in this show that I felt like they took straight out of that trade paperback Grant Morrison run that I bought.
Especially that Wolverine Magneto scene. That was like literally from just a book.
Yeah, it's literally like just a panel from.
Yeah. Also, I'm saying Grant Morrison, and it's not Grant Morrison. It's
Chris Claremont.
Yep, it's Chris Claremont. Still getting into comics, guys. Bear with me. Yeah.
No, I mean those are literally the two names that like people most associate with X-Men. So you had a coin toss on them.
But it's so like it was so fun to watch this, and because I listen to podcasts and I watch videos of people reacting to this show so positively. And I can tell it's coming probably like you guys have, even in just the like text that we would have after each episode of just being like, there's a nostalgia there for both of y'all, I would imagine, that like I don't have. But as you were saying earlier, Trent, for me, it was like, oh, this is an incredible world to live in. I understand why everyone have so much stock in the X-Men now. I understand why people are clinging on to the MCU through this like big slump that they're in right now to hopefully get a true live action adaptation of the X-Men. It's because the characters and the story of the X-Men is that good. And I'm completely sold on it now. Like I can't wait to see what happens next. So that this general reaction to the show has been like overwhelmingly positive, I feel like. Maybe I'll clarify with like, have y'all seen any negative reactions to the show out there?
The only like negative things I've seen is I've seen some people say that like the 3-part finale didn't quite work for them perfectly. Like they thought that was a little rushed.
Interesting. Yeah. That's probably like about it. I haven't seen much else.
Right, I haven't seen anybody be like, this is bad, or like, I don't understand what people are talking about. Like, I haven't seen that, which is what, like, whereas with all the Marvel movies recently, like Love and Thunder, you had people who were like, this is a lot of fun, and then people being like, this is like the worst thing they've ever made. What are you talking about?
Right.
There's definitely not been that discourse.
No, there definitely hasn't. It's like, I think at worst, people would maybe call this mid. This is not bad.
Right. I feel like some people were like, it feels too close to the original animated series at points for some people. Like the first episode dealing with Sentinels and the first episode of the original series deals with Sentinels. And so some people were like, isn't this the same show, just a little bit nicer? Like, And so I did see some of that a little bit at the beginning, but I think by the end it sort of had forged its own new identity that bothered people less.
Yeah, I haven't really seen much negative about it. I haven't seen the stuff about the finale being rushed, but I mean, if that's the worst thing you're going to say about it, that's pretty good considering the year and a half or so that Marvel's had.
Yeah.
So
right, exactly. They will take this any day.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the strength of it is in the writing. So, the animation could be great and the writing could stink. Or you could have something that, there's good older animated shows that are dated in animation, but the writing holds up and that's why they just stick around. So I think this one will be something that sticks around.
I think so too. So it's gotten majority praise. In the majority, it's been praised for the show. So my question for y'all is: since I don't know, y'all have a deeper connection to the X-Men than I do. Why do you think this worked in particular?
Yeah, like I said, I think it was just adapting like just those straight from the comic stories. I think was a huge part of it. It was like we don't need to invent a plot here. There's decades of stories we can pull from here that work. And I think it's a show that embraces, literally from what I understand, everything about the X-Men that people love. Like the fact that it is so organically ripe for like social commentary, like, and the show puts that front and center. The fact that there is like the cheesy melodrama stuff, like when Jean Grey gets mad at Scott for telecommunicating with Madeline Pryor, like that triangle and that romance melodrama is like a thing in the X-Men. It's just, and so I think the fact that literally every facet of what I've heard over the years, X-Men is like they captured it in some way. And so I think, people are just like, see, it's not that hard, but I'm sure it was hard.
If you look at the past 25 years of portrayals of Cyclops, dude did not have a good track record. And then you have something like this that you're like, suck it, Wolverine. Cyclops is the leader, and we're going to make him one of the coolest characters again. I think that's part of the reason it worked, is because people who are fans of the X-Men in the comics like Cyclops more than Wolverine in a lot of cases, where Wolverine is kind of oversaturated like Batman and Spider-Man, but doesn't have Wolverine doesn't lend himself to as many stories as Spider-Man and Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have Cyclops, who's like the leader of the team that's just been butchered for years. And they bring him back in this, and he's got his, rivalry with Wolverine, but everyone else is like, oh yeah, Cyclops is the man. But they don't make him like a superhero. You see Cyclops throughout the whole show, like struggling with how he should lead the team and struggling with having a kid with his clone wife that then gets dunked into like a nanovirus bath. So, I mean, he has all of these problems that he has to go through that make him more relatable, where he's not just, perfect guy. And then you have, again, Magneto being one of the most compelling characters in fiction.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Coming through here being like, oh yeah, it's still Magneto, and you still relate to him. Maybe not in the Magneto was right all the way sense, but he wasn't all the way wrong. So
it's tough. It's a great question, man. Like I watched this show and I'm like, oh, they like really. To me, I felt like the show was saying Magneto was right, but Magneto has such a superiority complex that he was fighting more for mutant superiority than anything else. I will say by the time we got to the end, the Magneto and Charles relationship, oh my gosh.
So fascinating.
And that's one thing the X-Men movies nailed, every time.
So this probably other people listening who have watched the movies will probably wonder or they probably know in their mind, but I'm curious, like what didn't work in the movies that was maybe like remedied in this show?
Well, it wasn't this show, but
Cyclops.
yeah,
Okay,
Cyclops for sure.
So
in this
Cyclops
show.
is that guy. Okay,
Right, and then the original show, like, they have failed to do the Phoenix Saga not once but twice in the live action movie realm, and then the
That's
original
true.
show like does
Yeah.
it perfectly. That I was like,
Oh, really?
I actually get
Okay.
how this works now. Like to the point that I was like, I did like. There's a huge gap of the Phoenix thing missing in the live action, like before it all turns bad that the show showed. And I was like, this actually makes sense now.
The movies butchered the Cure plot too.
Yeah.
And the show did it all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just listening to people just, glow about this show and how it feels like the X-Men they read in the comics, and how it feels like an updated version of the original series. I'm like, that sounds great. I'm glad that, all these people that have this deep connection to the X-Men felt that way. How well do you think this show continued the legacy of the original animated series?
Pretty much perfectly. I mean, it helps that they literally said that it's not a reboot, that they viewed it as a sequel to the original series. So they just pick up stuff. Like Charles is still hanging out with the Shi'ar. Like it was so fun to watch this with my brother-in-law and explaining to him. I was like, oh yeah, at the end of the original series, Charles almost died and had to go into a spaceship where they had special technology to keep him alive. And her sister tries to take her over every now and again. Her name's Deathbird, and like that's a thing. And he looked at me like I was nuts. And then I showed him like that episode where they pop back up, and I'm like, "See, I told you."
Yep.
The Gladiator has like a purple mohawk.
Yeah, it's great. In terms of fixing anything from the original series, I think the main thing it fixes is because of what the show had to do for low budget reasons. Like the original show, especially towards the end, like characters sort of would just disappear. Like the Phoenix Saga happens and getting Jean Grey back's a big deal, and then Jean kind of like disappears from the last like season and a half of the show in a lot of ways.
Oh.
And so I think this show did a much better job of like, let's make sure we're keeping a relatively good balance of the whole roster and everybody gets relatively equal amount of time. Jubilee like is our entry point in the original series and kind of never shows up again. In a lot of ways, whereas here she gets like a whole little arc here, which was really well done.
Yeah, Jubilee in the original series was like, she was kind of like Omega in like the first season of the Bad Batch, where you're like, why is this dumb kid coming around? And then in this one, she kind of grows up some and has her motivations of what she wants to do. That the fifth season of the original series was not great. But I think it still continued the legacy pretty well, and it followed what was going on. Like Josh, you remember the little green guy that died when Magneto was trying to protect him?
Oh yeah, Alan Genosha.
So he was in like season 1 of the original show and like showed up some throughout the show, and you kind of see where his people come from, the Morlocks. So like when that guy died, me and Trent are like, no, not Leech.
Not Leech.
Oh, but that hits.
So like when he dies, you have an attachment to him and you're like, oh no. And then you kind of remember what he goes through in the original series and you're like, oh no. And then they continue the psychological stuff that Morph goes through. Because Morph did not have a good time.
Morph had a very bad time in the original series.
In the original series. Like Morph died once. So
I get the sense that characters die a lot in this show.
Yeah, they do. But it was a good follow-up to the original show, and it pushed it to be more mature, because it was like this show was made for people who were kids when the first one came out. Because like Wolverine stabs people now.
Yeah.
When he used to just kind of jump around and punch him a little bit, and he would only cut stuff up if it was like a robot. He would threaten to cut people all the time, probably like every episode.
Call them gutter trash. That was his favorite insult.
That's wild.
But they pushed it thematically too, of what it could be as like a more mature cartoon show in a different way than like a Rick and Morty is a mature show.
Right.
Like with the older type of comedy, this was like, hey, we're going to talk about civil rights and genocide. So
well, that's an interesting point, because I personally felt like y'all. It sounds like you agree with this, but this felt like it was still made primarily like with children could watch the show, and it's not going to be inappropriate for them, you know.
So I actually did have an interesting conversation about that the other day. One of our friends who recently got married, not the most recent one, but the one before that, was texting me about the show. He said, I don't know if I had a kid, if I would let him watch it. So I think there is a little bit of that parents may have to deal with.
Because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, look, parents make the decisions they want to, like for different stuff, you know.
Of course,
I'm not here to say how to parent by any means. But I felt like this was like the way the discourse about the show is kind of what you're saying, Joseph, where it's like, this is something that all these adults in my life, or the ones I listen to on podcasts, are deeply enjoying, because it is like hitting on themes that are prevalent in our world today that have been prevalent for a long, long time. That just require a more mature kind of dialogue around. But at the same time, I felt like this is still a cartoon. I'm not going to necessarily compare this to a prestige TV show that I'm watching. Like we mentioned Andor earlier. I'm not going to put this in the same echelon as Andor, because it has all the technical components of like a cartoon, like the quick pacing and the, 30-minute episodes requiring you to stuff a lot of story into those episodes, especially over the course of a 10-episode season. So it felt different to me,
I think another thing too that you can look at for how adults relate to it is take the Madeline Pryor stuff away for a minute. I'm not married, but I feel like Gene and Scott have conversations that married people would have, like, what do we want to do with our future? We've got these responsibilities here, but we kind of want to get away from them. And so I think you can look at that as like, oh, they're dealing with like real people problems too, not just there's a giant sentinel trying to kill us, but like, how do we want to raise our kid in a world that probably won't accept it?
I totally agree. And I found those moments of the show like incredible. The quiet, I know, like I feel like if you were to hop on Twitter right after one of these episodes, it would be a bunch of like people tweeting out their favorite GIF from one of the action pieces in the show, like we'll talk about some of those too, because they were incredible. But I found the quiet moments of conversations between characters to be my favorite part of the show. I don't know about y'all, but did y'all feel that way?
No, I mean the very end of episode 5, like the culmination of Rogue and Gambit's relationship, and like they can finally touch because he's dead. Like that's like what a brutal thing to do to people who've watched that relationship over like 5 seasons of TV, and then this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you can look at both the action moments and the quiet moments, because, like, guess what? Cyclops jumps out of a plane and lands with a laser beam. So,
yeah, he does.
So freaking cool, man. Oh my gosh.
But then you have, like, these quiet moments where, talking with Gambit and Rogue again, where Rogue is like, I'm going to be the queen, and Gambit's like, I guess I'll just be your friend.
Oh.
But, watching the original show, you're like, Gambit, we know what you really want to do. So, it's strange how they mix it, and then the switch in tone, because you can have these really jarring tone shifts.
Yeah.
But you have this kind of episode 5 of the show, not of Star Wars, but this like all these scenes of these like political maneuverings, like, hey, we want to basically make Magneto the king, and he wants Rogue to be the queen, and they're going through all this personal stuff. And then Cable shows up like, everybody get out of here, you're all gonna die. And you don't know what's happening, and he gets sucked back, and then this like spider sentinel comes out and just starts killing everybody. But it's so quick of a tonal change, yet it still works.
There are some moments to me where I felt the whiplash of the show, for sure. But it was never to the point where I found it unenjoyable. It was like, whatever I was being like, whiplash to focus on next was incredibly engaging and great storytelling. So it was like, in an ideal world, I would have enjoyed more pacing in the show, but it was never like at the cost of the story, I feel like. We've talked a lot about different moments, right, between different characters, and y'all have a more of an attachment to these characters in particular, having watched the original series. So what are the character arcs and like relationships that impress you the most in this show?
I mean, I feel like it's Rogue and Gambit for like between the two. Like I said, just you're spending this whole the whole original series being like, can they figure out a way to make this work in some way, shape, or form? And then at the start of this next episode, next new show, you're like, oh, they're still in that place. And then then she chooses Magneto, and you're like, wow, it's over. And Gambit's just been friend zoned for life, brutal for my guy. And then she's like, actually, no, psych, I am gonna pick it. And then Homeboy dies in the most epic way possible, and it's just you can't do that. And then the fact that they I was convinced, I was mad when episode 5 happened and they showed Cable, because I was like, oh, you're telling me that there's going to be time travel to undo this, and I was bummed. And then that didn't happen, and I was like, oh, so even if they do undo this eventually, it will not be easily undone. So yeah, that was the main character thing I came away from the most invested in and thinking about, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to take an apocalypse to get Gambit back. I think I got to go with Gambit too, because I think Professor X's eulogy of Gambit was the perfect way of describing him. He always thought he was the bad guy, but he was the best of us. And I think that was Gambit's arc through all 5 seasons of the original one, and then this season of he's trying to get past his past and all of those demons that he had. One of them, literally, the swamp demon.
Yeah,
that's in season whichever one it is.
I think that's 3 or 4.
Yeah, but I think Gambit had a great arc. I think Cyclops and Jean's relationship was really good. And the thing I was thinking about earlier was they both had reasonable reactions to Madeline, where Jean was like, how could you do this? And Cyclops was like, she's a clone switched with you. Can you give me a break?
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, it's not like I was cheating on you or anything. Someone made a clone of you. And so this is really complicated. I think one of the interesting things was that Wolverine as a character didn't change a lot throughout the season, because he kind of was on the back burner for most of it, which for most of X-Men media is the cardinal sin. Wolverine has to be in everything.
Right.
And at the forefront. But I thought Magneto's try to be good arc was compelling.
Yeah.
Where he was like, I'm going to try, but don't make me turn bad.
Also love that they just decided to make him super jacked for no actual reason.
Yeah. Dude was shredded.
Yeah, probably Magneto and Gambit, I think, were my favorite character arcs of the season.
So I have to say, you mentioned it already, but I would die for Cyclops. Like I like legitimately, I've never felt more sad for a character like in watching this show, because you lined it up already, Joseph. Like him and Jean had, but they both had appropriate reactions. But if I'm Cyclops, I'm like, what was I supposed to do? DNA test you? Like how was I supposed to know I was with your clone? That's crazy. And like,
it wasn't even just DNA tester. It was like, check how old the DNA is.
It was like it was like counting the rings on a tree. Like
carbon date me. Like what? I don't understand. Like so he gets basically shunned for that. He also gets shunned for like being a deadbeat dad when he was literally saving his son's life by sending him to the future. Like he dies if he stays in the present. And then like Cable comes back and is all like, yeah, the father I never had. Like, bro, you wouldn't be living if it wasn't for him doing that. And I'm just like,
Josh, I think you'd understand the pain that Cyclops is going through with that once you see the original series.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That helps. I would like to watch the original to have some context. But I just, and then like, so this will give me to my other answer, which is Charles and Magneto are just incredible television. Let me tell you, like, because I feel like they both, in their own ways, think that the X-Men or mutants are theirs to, it's like their birthright. Like it's their birthright to be like this, like either leader or father figure to these people. And it's like they both make such boneheaded decisions and expect to still be able to lead the team. And like Cyclops is such a like great example of that. Like I felt like in that 3-part finale, I feel like it's after the X Mansion gets bombed and Charles comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyclops has been like holding this team together for the past however, like year, I guess, like for however long it's been since Charles was presumed dead. Like Cyclops has been holding this team together, going through personal hell, and Charles comes back and essentially just like resumes as being the leader and like starts barking orders at Cyclops. And I'm like, hold on, mister, like at least say thank you first. Like I felt so much for Cyclops this season. I'm like, I want my man to be free. Like, go live your life, dude. And it seems like he's kind of gonna do that a little bit in season 2. But and then the Charles and Magneto of it all, I cannot wait to watch them both in season 2 and see the continued exploration of like their relationship with each other. And again, it's the grappling of like basically watching them both fail to lead in different ways and both kind of fail at their approach to what justice looks like is really fascinating to me, because they're both like so set in their ways but still have like a love and respect for each other that I just like it is honestly so compelling to watch. I really want to see them share more screen time together, because all those sequences where Charles was in Magneto's head at the end in the finale was just like beautiful, chef's kiss, like them like going back and forth like visually with the setting in the background, basically like just showing you why they believe the things that they believe. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because you understand and you see that this is maybe the thing that X-Men movies do the best. You understand why Magneto is the way that he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You may not agree with how he goes about everything, but you're like, oh yeah, this dude was like a Holocaust survivor and he's determined to not go through that again.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily agree with all of his actions or approve of them, but you're like, I can kind of see how he gets to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think they did a good job too of like putting that up against Charles's like tolerance is the answer in this season, at least, because I don't know how it was in the original, but to me I felt like that it made sense. Like I found myself being like No, like listen to Magneto here. Like you don't understand. Like Genosha was just completely obliterated. Like how can your next response like not be anger? You know what I mean? Like I felt like they set up the season well for you to have the best understanding possible of Magneto and his choices.
No, I mean
Well,
the original series has an episode where like Magneto establishes Asteroid M, so he's like, okay, fine, like I can't like get rid of all of humans, but you all don't accept us. I'm gonna just go yeet into space, and then that doesn't work out. And so yeah, like he does try various strategies, even building his own asteroid.
Well, and then they didn't even. I don't think they even touched the Savage Land in this season.
Oh, the Savage Land.
The Savage Land is wild. And
the most insane thing ever done.
So I know about like this is a thing in the comics, right? Like the Savage Land. Like, that is a explore. Okay, and so they explored in the original series.
Oh my gosh! For like there's like a quarter of season 2, Charles and Magneto are stuck in the Savage Land.
I think it's all of season 2. They're in there.
It's at least half action.
Yeah, they go and fight a pterodactyl named Sauron.
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's not
they don't. Are you serious?
That's not a joke.
Yeah.
They go fight a pterodactyl man named Sauron.
Yeah.
This sounds like must watch TV.
Well,
like,
I
gotta lock in.
It's a human man whose mutant ability is turning into a pterodactyl named Sauron. Sauron's a whole separate. It's like multiple personality disorder almost.
Yeah,
like it's a whole separate thing.
What?
So it's Gollum's psyche inside of a man that turns into a pterodactyl man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Named Sauron.
Yeah.
Except Sauron doesn't talk. Sauron doesn't talk to the guy. They're like aware of each other, but they don't. And he turns into the pterodactyl by absorbing mutant powers.
Yeah.
So did y'all enjoy this part of the show? Like I'm trying to pick up on your.
Like I resisted it initially, and then I decided to lean in, and then after that I was like, nah, this is incredible. And every time Sauron came back on screen, I was like, oh boy, here we go, my guy.
Yeah, he takes a little bit of getting used to because he's got like a really annoying nasally voice. And so he's flying around like, I'm going to get you, X-Men.
Oh, that's great.
And then people in the Savage Land don't like Magneto, and Charles is trying to do his pacifist thing like, let's see if we can come to an accord. And the Savage Land people are like, no, do you know what this guy did to us?
Dang, that's wild. See, y'all are making this sound more appealing to me to go and grind through the 5 seasons.
You're in for some fun with the Morlocks and the Savage Land.
Yeah,
because those seasons are like, it's not the 10 episodes that we just got. They're like in the 20 range, right?
Yeah, they're closer to 30.
It's like, are they?
Or no, it's 13.
It's like 15 or so.
So no, it's 13 for most of them, and then one of them has like 15, and then the last one has 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful.
The 10 of season 5 are nowhere close to as good as the 10 of this season.
I'm about to say, honestly, when you get to 5, like, we could just curate for you, like, the 5 episodes to watch, because there's only,
Give me your AI-generated, shortened playlist for season 5. That'd be great.
Captain America and Wolverine storm a Nazi base.
Yeah,
and,
that's pretty awesome.
Oh, that makes me think. That makes me think. I feel like we've focused so much on the X-Men, obviously, because they're central to the show, but, like, the cameos in this season of television were crazy. What was your favorite?
I mean, for selfish reasons, like besides Batman the animated series, like the Spider-Man 90s animated series was like huge for my childhood. So seeing that iteration of Spider-Man and MJ show up, I was like, they're canon. Like this is gonna happen. Like they may get their own reboot. Like
that would be really cool.
That healed my inner child, as the internet loves to say.
I thought it was cool to see Daredevil because I don't remember him having much of a presence in those like 90s animated shows.
No, I think he just shows up in like 2 Spider-Man episodes.
Morph was like a cameo machine.
Yes.
Like seeing like Avengers that I don't know if anyone would have been hyped to see these characters show up in the 90s, But seeing, Black Panther and Doctor Strange, I'm like, oh look, oh my gosh, like I can't believe it. I guess that was T'Chaka, right?
Yeah.
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 That I felt like that was probably the coolest one for me. But then the Captain America and Rogue showdown, that was a lot of fun for me. I was like, okay, this is a different kind of Captain America than the Chris Evans, Steve Rogers I'm used to. And then watching Rogue just like this, take the shield and disrespect it. I was like, oh, this is crazy right now.
She's just like, you don't need this. Yeets it into the mountains.
Right, exactly.
That's the episode everyone remembers. Like, oh yeah, you don't want Rogue to get mad at you.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Because was that the episode where she killed Trask at the end?
Yes,
it was. Because that was like right after the Genosha thing, I think.
Yes.
Well, because you had the Genosha thing, and then the Storm episode.
Oh yeah, with
and then
the
I think it was that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right. What moments of this season are going to live rent-free in your head going forward? Because there are a lot.
I mean, for me, it's like, I'll just do a quick top 3. It's the Genosha ending in 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's Cyclops using his optic beam to like move around and fight at the very beginning of episode 1.
Yes.
And then it's Nightcrawler fighting a bunch of robots while also having a sword attached to his tail. Like, those are the 3 images that stick in my head the most.
I'm gonna take Trent's first 2, and then my third is gonna be Magneto ripping out the adamantium from Wolverine.
That's a great
that
one
was
too.
Nuts. I was shocked because Joseph, you sent the GIF in our group chat like as soon as you finished it, and me and Trent were like, "Nope, haven't seen it yet. Stop everything you're doing."
It's like, say no more.
Yeah.
And then watch that, and I was like, "Oh, I get the reaction now." Like that was crazy. I have to also agree with you, Trent, and say the Nightcrawler using 3 swords and one of them being attached to his tail was freaking phenomenal. Because I believe isn't he teaming up with isn't he fighting alongside Wolverine when that happens?
Yeah,
they're protecting Rogue, right?
Yeah, in the hospital wing or whatever.
Yes, that scene. Oh my gosh, chef's kiss, and because I where I was reading at in the comics, at the time is like a tandem mission between Wolverine and Nightcrawler. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It's like, it's literally right out of what I was just reading in the comics. Like that was one of the most for me where I'm like, I get the feeling everyone else is experiencing. Like I get this like intense wave of nostalgia and just excitement.
And Nightcrawler, Trent, is in what, like 3 or 4 episodes of the original show?
It's incredible.
Maybe.
And, I'm not saying any of this disrespectfully, truly. It's incredible. He shows up for like 2 episodes of the original series, and he spends most of it just being like an evangelist, like literally. He's just trying to convince, convert Wolverine to Christianity for like the 2 episodes he shows up in.
Whoa.
And Wolverine kind of ish does?
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts how Nightcrawler helps Wolverine out.
Yeah.
I really like that pair. I really enjoy the Nightcrawler Wolverine pair. Because in the comics, he's like, Wolverine's always calling him the misfit and stuff like that. It was just like, it was fun. I became a big Nightcrawler fan watching this show. I'm not gonna lie. Because also his relationship with Rogue is really sweet to me. Like I really enjoy a lot of their moments together. So that one really sticks out to me. I really enjoyed episode 3. I feel like that one doesn't get talked about as much as some of the others, but that's the, Madeline Pryor, or maybe is it Jean Grey that becomes the Goblin Queen?
No, it's
I
Madeline.
can't remember which one.
It's Madeline.
It's Madeline. Okay. That episode was just wacky in so many ways, like a little elements of horror in there, but it never felt like, scary.
That's the one where Madeline banishes all of them to hell below the X Mansion.
Yeah, Morph is literally like, "Don't you get it? We're in hell!" Like,
and that's the one where Bishop and Wolverine, I think they have a combo that is
Cyclops and Bishop do. Cyclops just supercharges Bishop, and Bishop just annihilates all the parademon looking things.
Yes. That's what I'm thinking of. That was dope. That was super dope. And that's another one
Bishop
that
Bishop got a nice haircut
Yeah,
in the show.
he looks great in the new version.
He
His
does.
character design was a bit revamped in a better way, I think.
He does look great. Yeah, I feel like those two. I mean, Genosha. The Genosha episode is obviously incredible. I'd probably go with Joseph. I think about that final frame of the adamantium getting ripped out of Wolverine. Like, that was intense. Because the whole fight leading up to that, I thought Wolverine killed Magneto first, because I mean, he stabbed straight through the chest, and that was actually a pretty bloody scene. I was, that's the part where I'm like, yeah, maybe a kid shouldn't be watching this. Like, I don't know, like, and then for Magneto to turn right back around and do that, it was like, oh man, I've heard other people compare the X-Men just as a property to a oh, sorry, 1 second. I've heard other people say this about the X-Men. They've often compared it to basically like a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it now. Like, I completely get it. Like, I mean, the drama is like ratcheted all the way up. Like, there's no like ending that feels tame ever. There's no, like, every ending is extremely just climactic, and all the relationships feel like that of a soap opera. Like, all the love triangles in this show is kind of wild how many. And I know that's just the X-Men in general. Like, Jean, Wolverine, Cyclops is like, a historic love triangle. But
so they, from what I can tell, in the most recent run of X-Men comics, they are a throuple.
I know what you. Yes, yep. I've heard about this. It is a.
I haven't read it, and I've heard it's a little weird, but
it's crazy. Like, from the stuff that I've heard about it, it is. I'm like, oh wow, they're really pushing the boundaries. Like, that's crazy. So yeah, that will. I don't know if this show will take it that far.
I don't think so.
Well, no, the show did the interesting thing that I thought was really cool, because I know people are sort of divided on the love triangle thing, but I like that the show did this thing of when Jean Grey is coming back and she doesn't really remember everything quite yet. She kisses Logan, and I'm like, oh, so are they gonna do this thing where like revamped Jean is more connected to Logan than she is Cyclops? That could be an interesting kind of flip on the triangle. So we'll see.
I like that idea. Because I know when that happened, I'm like, oh yeah, nah, that doesn't just like happen and then go away. And then, we didn't talk about this, but at the finale, when Morph transforming into Jean to tell Wolverine that like either Jean loves him or Morph loves him, like it was a little ambiguous there, but I thought that was a like there. That the Jean thing is coming back 100%.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Should anything about this show specifically be translated into the MCU live action X-Men?
Cyclops.
I'm about to say, I mean, Cyclops, like, yes, Cyclops as a conflicted but actual competent leader, as opposed to just like the Boy Scout thing, like that's the main thing. And then nothing else specifically, I don't think. Just like adapt stories from the comics. Like, I think this show is just a reminder that's like you have this wealth of foundational story building blocks you can use. Like, you don't have to reinvent stories and do like mishmash remixes all the time.
Yeah.
Just adapt storylines. That's okay.
I'm curious what you guys think of this. Like, would you want to see the live action movies take the suits from this show?
I'm so curious how they're like the blue suits are gonna look, because like,
yeah,
I like that they did the reverse X-Men joke of like, what did you expect, black leather, like, which was very funny. But like, I was like, I do understand in 2001 why they went that way, because I'm like, they could look stupid. Like, First Class kind of does a colorful one that looks okay, but yeah, I don't know. I think they're gonna have to do some testing to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, the Wolverine's outfit in Deadpool looks good. So, I mean, they could do something like that. I don't know how some of the characters' outfits would translate, because Storm has those like weird band things that they're like on her wrist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how those would go. I think how they do Cyclops' like visor will be interesting to see what they do. I don't know. I'd like them to take something, maybe not like what the show does, but something from the comics, because there's different X-Men suits throughout the comics, so they could make it work. But not black leather again. That was boring.
Yeah, it's just too boring. Like, I'm fine if you want to do something simpler or cleaner, but don't just like have it just be a blank black leather suit.
Yeah.
But, Trent, the ones that looked really cool were like the future suits in Days of Future Past.
Yes, those looked really cool.
Because those were kind of like armored.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand if they don't want to go, full animated series, because that's just maybe a little too comic booky, but I just love the suits from the show. I love the color palette of this show. Cyclops suit is like, oh gosh, it's like one of the coolest comic book suits that I feel like we've seen. Especially with the visor. Like, it's such a good look, man. Like, I don't know. And especially now seeing that Wolverine's going to be wearing something similar in Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, I'm just like, let's just stick to this, man.
I think it could work. The MCU, for a lot of the faults in it, the costume design has been pretty good.
They've been pretty stellar. There's very few bad ones.
Yeah.
I agree with that. What predictions do you have for season 2? Y'all will be better equipped to make predictions here, but we got some teases at the end of this one. Like, we got Apocalypse, we got some alternate timelines. What predictions do you have?
We got Apocalypse, and then I didn't know till a couple days after the finale that there was a post-credit scene that hints at Gambit coming back as one of the Horsemen for Apocalypse. So yeah, we're definitely getting Apocalypse, and I didn't know till I was watching the breakdown videos that the dome thing in Egypt was supposed to be Kang. So people are talking like, are we getting Marvel brand synergy of Kang for everything?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
How's that? Wait, how'd they verify that?
Apparently this is a thing in the comics that happened. Like, in some iterations of the comics, like, Kang is instrumental in Apocalypse getting some of his powers, apparently.
Interesting. Huh. That's kind of cool.
So yeah, we're definitely getting Apocalypse, which makes sense because he was arguably like the big bad of the original show, or the one that showed up the most.
Yeah, him or Sinister.
Yeah. And since Sinister seemingly got dealt with, or at least severely diminished.
Yeah, I think the entire season is going to be an Age of Apocalypse season. I think it's going to be just one through line of the season. I think Gambit will not be the only X-Men to become a Horseman.
Ooh.
Oh.
There's another person who may be convinced by Apocalypse to turn into a Horseman to get something back that he lost. And I think Gambit turning back good is going to be through Rogue. I don't think that's too far of a stretch, though.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, Joseph, Lord of the Lore, can you explain the Horsemen to me?
Apocalypse has 4 horsemen: death, war, famine, and pestilence. And he just kind of gives them like power-ups to kind of do his bidding across the world. So Gambit is probably going to be the Horseman of Death. I'll give you the spoiler. I think Wolverine is going to be the Horseman of War.
Whoa. Oh, interesting.
And then famine and pestilence, they may be some random people from ancient Egypt. But yeah, it's pretty much Apocalypse's lackeys is who the Horsemen are.
Yeah.
Kind of like, the what do you call them? What are they called in Infinity War? Thanos's
the children of Thanos.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, they're
kind of like
pretty
that.
much they're kind of like that.
Okay, cool. I get down with that.
There's a few different ones throughout the original series. Like Archangel is one at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other like in-betweeners, Trent, that were horsemen, or was it just kind of unnamed people after that?
Yeah, I think it was mainly unnamed. Archangel was like the only name brand X-Men character.
Yeah.
Name brand. What's an off-brand X-Men character?
Just the one. I can't name them because like if you don't know their names, that's how you know.
Great point. Great point.
I don't know. Banshee kind of just hung out with Moira McTaggart all the time.
Oh yeah, with that amazing scream that they have for the '90s show.
Yeah, one thing, Josh, whenever you get around to the 90s show is the sound that Jean makes like every time she uses her powers.
Oh yeah, there's
she screams and passes out every time. They did Jean a lot better in this show.
Yeah.
That's like a common thing if you go back to like 90s or early 2000s comic books. Like I can't do with screaming. Like I swear they make all the women characters like scream. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, it's piercing my eardrums. I can't do this.
I mean, even Storm did it a little bit in the old one. Not as much as Jean.
No, Jean's... Yeah, I mean, Jean's thing is a whole thing.
Yeah, Jean's thing is kind of like... I don't want a lot of people to hear this one. Like when Rogue screams, it's like screeching and in pain. Like you kind of get why she does it that way. Jean's is
a tad suggestive.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's like the most PG way I can put it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There. Okay. All right. I'm tracking.
Yeah. There you go.
Do you think there's X-Men that have been left out of the show to this point, or we didn't see who were in the original series that might show up in season 2, or like anyone you would want to see?
I think they name dropped Colossus, who did show up in the original series.
Yeah.
I don't think they never did Kitty Pryde in either version. I don't think.
Okay.
No, she wasn't there. I mean, Archangel again. I don't think he was in this season.
No, and he has a big thing with Apocalypse in the original series, so that would make sense.
Okay.
Iceman.
Oh, Iceman, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and he's like an OG.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's only in, one episode of the original?
I think just the one, yeah.
Yeah. His episode was good, though. But, yeah,
it's
Iceman,
really good.
Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch.
Mm-hmm.
Scarlet Witch I would love to see that.
Oh, who was it? I'm trying to think.
Will we get Deadpool in this show?
Apparently, for this season, Deadpool was one of the few people that were strictly off limits. They actually came out and talked about that.
Okay, interesting.
Deadpool was in like a frame of the original show. I think Morph was using him to mess with Wolverine.
Yeah, Morph was brainwashed for an episode and turned into Deadpool for 2 seconds.
Morph was brainwashed for more than an episode.
Yeah, for a long time.
Or Morph. Also, Morph could do literally whatever he wants. Like this man was the Hulk. He was he was Quicksilver at one point this season. Like he was he's a cheat code.
He might have been Emma Frost at one point.
Yeah,
I think for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm still trying to think of what other X-Men could show up. Oh, Colossus's sister, I think, is a mutant, but she was in the old show, but she didn't have any mutant powers.
No, she just shows up in the background of that one episode in Russia.
Yeah, because Colossus the whole time is just sitting there like, Ileana! Ileana! He's just trying to find his sister the whole time.
The catalog seems truly endless.
Well, because it's the thing of like there's the OG team, and then there was like the second iteration, and then there was like the young X-Men. So there's like 8 different rosters they can sort of cherry pick from whatever they want. So
yeah,
you could probably have X-23 show up at some point.
That could be interesting.
Or some of like the other New Mutants. Who was the girl in Deadpool? Oh, Yukio.
Oh yeah,
she could probably show up. I don't know how well Negasonic Teenage Warhead would would work in the show.
I feel like we have truly covered, the bulk of this show today.
I think so.
What you guys have any like last comments? Oh, actually, I do want to give out grades. So maybe let's do last comments, and if you have a grade for the show, what would it be? Trent, I'll kick it off to you first.
Yeah, no, I mean, great show. I thought the 3-part finale, just so much happened that it did feel a little rushed to me. But like you said, Josh, it's 30 minutes. What are you gonna do? I do wish Morph had gotten a little more time with Sinister, since that was a big part of Morph's history. But really, no, excellent show, excellent writing, excellent animation. Can't wait to see where they go next. If you don't think you're in on the MCU anymore or superhero stuff, this is one that I'd say give it a try. I think you'll at least have some fun. This is like A+. This is like right below S tier for me.
Wow. Okay. Glowing review from Trent. I love it.
I'm trying to think what grade to give now, because I was thinking Trent was going to be like A- or something, and I was like, oh, I'm going to give it an A, because I'm trying to be stingy with like my A+.
I'm with you, Joseph.
I can't remember what I gave Dune 2, if we gave it anything, but that Dune 2 is an A+. I think I'll give this an A. Great show. There's really no complaints. I'll give it an A+. What the heck?
All right. There you go. All right.
We'll have fun. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any complaints with the show. I think it lived up to the 30 years of hype. I guess 20
that's a long time.
20 years of hype. 25 years of hype. Yeah, I think it was great. It felt like being a little kid again. Gambit and Cyclops were my favorite when I was a kid, so they kind of shined in the show.
Yeah, that's awesome. I honestly love you guys, everyone saying just the inner child coming out watching this show. It's a wonderful thing. I would give this an A- for me. Because I don't have as strong of an attachment. I think that's probably what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. My nitpicks for the show would be it felt whiplashy at moments, and I think that there were some in a 10-episode season where so much happens. There were still a couple episodes that I felt like were kind of skippable. Mm-hmm. I felt like there's a world where this is 8 episodes and it's just nonstop story and a continuous flow and all of it matters all the time, and maybe that's the perfect version of it. But all that being said, I had a wonderful time watching this show, and a great proof of concept for what the X-Men could be in the MCU. But even more than that, just here's some great storytelling with some incredible animation, especially in the action sequences. And if you haven't gotten into the X-Men and you're like me, give this a shot, because you will fall in love with these characters. You will be absolutely engaged and captured by the story and absolutely have to know what's coming next. So I think X-Men 97 is so refreshing too. I think because we haven't been wowed by a lot in fandom lately. It's not what we just got with Dune. It's something, completely different, and it's a fresh take on these characters and on this world. And I can't wait to get more. I absolutely can't wait to see more. So those are my thoughts. All right. I think, we did good here. All generally very positive about the show. An A- and 2 A+. That's good right there.
Yeah, that's great.
That's what you want. All right. I think that's going to do it for our episode today. Thanks so much, Joseph and Trent. This was an absolute blast.
Yeah, no, had a blast. Great show. It's fun when it's something we all really like.
Exactly. This is what we want all the time.
Yeah. No more Secret Invasion.
No more. Exactly. Well, as always, thank you all so much for listening. You can subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can follow us on social media at The Stinger Pod. We look forward to talking to you again soon.